Okay, all right. Close this out. Okay. So we are chapter 7, week 8. So I did get the lecture from Monday online, so you can review that. So we're going to need class activity chapter 7. So go ahead and download that zip file. I already downloaded it, so you'll need that. Go ahead and hide this, and let's open brackets. Okay, move that over here. Okay, so this first one, we talked about relative linking. All right, so when we have different files inside of folders that are inside of more folders, okay, so we need to code those a certain way when we're setting up the links for them. So we're gonna go ahead, I got my chapter 7 folder here that I'm gonna put all my files in. So I'm gonna rename, we're gonna need a folder here called Casita. Okay. And then in my chapter 7, I wanna get this folder here. And I'm gonna just copy everything that's in there into my new folder. All right. So in brackets, let's go ahead and open up that file. So index. And go ahead, let's preview it real quick in our browser. Okay, so we have our nav over here on the left. We got these different links here, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and open up let's go ahead and open up Canyon. So hold on a second. Oops. All right, so in my rooms folder here, we're gonna add a new room. Okay, we're gonna add a Juniper room. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up, we're gonna open up one of these files, kind of use as a template. So let's just open this Canyon file up. Dang it. Need to open that up in brackets. Okay. So we need to create a new element, list element in here. Okay, so we're gonna add another room. So I'm gonna just add one right under this Javelina. Right, so let's do our href equals juniper.html. Okay. Whoops. Close that. And Juniper. Okay. So a couple things to look at while we're in here. So to link back to that index file, okay, so let's take a look at the directory structure here. Might be better to show this as a list. So let's look at this Casita. Okay, so right now we are in this folder, okay, so rooms right here. We're going to save this file, so let's just change the title here, Juniper Room, do a file save as, and let's save it as juniper.html. Okay, and let's look at, okay, so there it is. So to link back to that home page, the index page, right? It's up here inside this casita folder. Okay, so right now we're inside the room folder. So in order to get back to that index file, we have to add those 2 periods / index, right? So whenever we do the 2 periods, that means that we're jumping backwards, back up into a home directory, okay? Now for these other rooms, like Canyon and Javelina, we don't have to put anything else, right? Because we are inside that directory right now. Okay, so all 3 of those files are inside that directory. So in our href, we can just list out the file names, okay? Same thing with now, if we wanted, so in our nav here, we want to link to the weekend.html and festival.html. Okay, so those ones are actually inside of another folder called events. Okay, so same thing, we have to first put our 2 periods here to tell the browser that jump back up into this directory. And then from there, we need to tell it to go to this folder or this directory called events. Okay, so that's that section right there. And then once we get there, we have another backslash, and then we tell it what HTML file we want to go to. So weekend.html. All right. So if we preview this in our browser, okay, so we have Juniper, Javelina, okay, our home. All right, so one thing that we have to look at here, so in our, oops. So if I jump from our Juniper room into like our Javelina, you noticed our navigation here, we lost that Juniper one. Okay, so we'd have to kind of add in all of that for our other nav areas, right? So if I, let's just copy this, okay, that new line we added, and let's jump to the index page. Okay, so we need to get that in our home page. So let's paste that list item. Okay, but right now it's not going to work, okay? Because right now we're in our index page, which is in our main casita directory. Okay, so we need to tell it to go to this rooms folder and then load Juniper. Okay, so we have to add this rooms section right there, right? Okay, so let's do that. And then, so let's open up another one here. So the main thing is you want your navigation consistent across all of our pages, right? So we have to do the same thing for contact, but let's open up events and take a look at festival, right? So let's add in that line there. Okay, so again, it's not gonna work because right now we're in the festival events file. So right, we're in events folder and festival. Okay, so we need to tell it, so here in our href, go back to the main directory, backslash, go to rooms, backslash, and then go to Juniper. Okay, and then we'd save that. All right, so then we have to do that same thing for weekend.html. And then if we go to contact, we would have to code that the same way we did index, because our contact.html, it's in this same folder here as index, right? Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. It gets a little tricky. You just have to kind of just think about those 2 dots as kind of going back a step, right? So back up into that main home directory, and then from there, any other folders that you need to get into, you have to put the name of those, backslash, and then the name of the file. okay? All right, so that is relative linking. So let's jump now to page 309. I'm gonna do some of the fragment identifiers. Okay. So we close that out. All right, so let's get chapter 1, or starter 1 on chapter 7, okay. All right, so let's open this starter 1.html and open that up in brackets. And then let's preview this real quick. Okay, so let me make this bigger. Okay, so what we want to do is create some links here for those three, and we want to link them to these different sections of the site. All right, so like hobbies, HTML5, and CSS. Okay. So let's go in here. The first thing we need to do, we need to set up those the IDs for these different headers here, right? So H2 hobbies. Okay, we're going to add an ID equals, and let's call that hobbies. Okay. Oops. What you got to do, make sure, let's cut this out of here. It has to be inside the opening tag. Okay, so it has to be inside that opening H2 tag. All right. So H2 space ID equals hobbies. All right. Inside of our opening H2 tag. Okay, so let's do the same thing for HTML5. So H2 space, make sure you have the space in there. ID equals, then in quotes, we'll call that HTML5. All right, and the last one here, that CSS, same thing, space ID equals CSS. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna link these up here. Okay, so after this here, we're gonna add an anchor link, a href equals, and then in our quotes here, we're gonna put hashtag hobbies. Okay. Close that. Let's move our closing tag there. Okay, it should, yeah, like that. Okay. Now we got to do the same thing with these guys. So let's do our href equals. That one's HTML5. Move that closing anchor tag to right there. And last one. CSS. Okay. So let's do file save as. Put this in my folder here. We'll call this favorites.html. And let's go ahead and open it up. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in here so you get a better effect of what it's doing. Okay, so if I click to the CSS, okay, did something wrong, sorry. CSS, There. Forgot the hashtag on these guys. That's what it was. So yeah, make sure you have that hashtag there in the href. Okay, let's try it again. All right. So now you see I clicked HTML5, took me right down to that section. Click CSS, takes me to that part of the page. All right. So this works a lot better if you have a really long list of things, right? Or a page that scrolls for quite a bit, where you have a lot of content in there. All right. This one's a little harder to tell because we don't have a whole lot going on there. But the main things to think about. So these IDs could be set up at anything, right? We could use that for within a div, within our H2 headers. If we had H3 headers, whatever it might be, we just add in the ID with the name of it, and then our href. Just make sure you have the # or the hashtag, the name of the ID. All right. Okay, 7.3, let's take a look here. All right, for this one, I'm not gonna code it. I'm just gonna show you guys. There's not much to it. Okay, it's that guy. Okay, so we talked about having links that open up separate browser tabs or browser windows. Okay, so to do that, when we have our anchor elements here, all right, so we have a link here for runningnetwork.com. Okay, the only thing that we add in to get that to work is this target. Okay, so right after our opening, so we're doing this all inside of our opening anchor element tag. Okay, so we have a space target equals and then underscore blank inside quotes space. Then we put our href for the URL that we're linking to. Close that opening tag, and then we have our URL. All right. So if we take a look at that in the browser, close these out. Exit doing. Okay. All right. So if we click on that, it's running network, and notice it went ahead and opened up a new tab, right? So the only time you'd want to do this really in your site is if you're linking to an external, if you're linking to an external site, right? If you're staying with inside your own site, don't be opening up new tabs because it's just going to get confusing. Okay, I've seen that happen a few times. We want to keep the navigation consistent. So the only time you want to do that is if you're taking the audience or your user to a separate URL site that's different from yours. Okay. All right, so let's go to 7.4. We're going to do sprites. Okay, so remember sprites. Talked about those the way we use graphics in like a rollover type image. Okay, so we're going to let's open up chapter 7 folder here, and we want to pull starter 2 and okay, then we're also going to need some image files here. Lighthouse Island JPEG, Lighthouse Logo JPEG, and Sprites.gif. All right, so let's get starter 2. Come on. I'll just make a new folder called Sprites. And I'm going to copy starter 2. And then let's go into the starters folder. We want this guy here, sprites.gif, and those 2 files. All right, so we got those 4 in there. Let's open up this one in brackets. Okay. So we're going to do this in our style sheet. Okay. So if you want to see what it looks like before we do anything, let's go ahead and preview it. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to add some stuff into these rollover buttons right there. Okay. So we're going to work with the Nav Anchor section here. All right. So right after this border bottom, let's go ahead and add, oops, do that. Okay. All right, we're going to do background image, URL, sprites.gif, okay, semicolon, and then we're going to do background repeat. Don't want that to repeat, so we're going to use no repeat. Okay, and then background position. If I can type today, background position. I'm going to set it right, 0. All right. Okay, so right now, by setting that at 0, the part of that is kind of hidden, okay? And then what we want to do now is go to this pseudo class here for Nav hover. Okay, so right after this property, we're going to add background position again. Okay, so background position. This time we're going to do right, and then -100 pixels. Okay, so it's going to move. What it's going to do is it's going to move that image on the browser screen. Okay, so let's do a file save as. Let's save this as index.html. All right, and let's see, in the browser. Okay, so we got the little lighthouse there now. So typically, I wouldn't do it like this because I think it looks ugly with repeating that and all these buttons. Okay, but you can kind of get the idea of what we're going to do. You can see when I roll over, it's that darker shade of the lighthouse. And if we look at the image, let me just open this up, preview here so you can see it. Okay, so it's a GIF file, right? So we have a transparent background. Okay, so that's one thing. PNGs and GIFs, we can do transparent backgrounds. Okay, so here's the lighter version, which we see right here. And then there's the darker version, which is what we get when we roll over. Okay, and all it's doing is it's moving the moving that image up and down, okay, through that background position. All right. So again, probably wouldn't use that like this in a nav, but if I had like a single button or something and I wanted to maybe do something like that, I'd probably set it up like that. Okay. All right. So that's sprites. What we're doing on time. All right, okay. All right. So let's jump to 7.5. Okay. So this one here, it's a big one. I kind of did some stuff ahead of time because I didn't want to have to type in all this, all the code there. So let me close out all this here. And so you should have a folder that you're going to create called Wildflowers 3. You're going to have a new HTML file. Okay, so in the book here, they want you to code all that by hand. So you can do that if you want to get practice typing, okay? It's a lot too much to code for right now because that'd take up too much time. So I went ahead and kind of preset all this up, but we have some JPEG files in here as well. Okay, so let's open that up here in brackets and preview what we have so far. Okay, so we don't have any CSS in here or anything, it's just HTML. Okay, we got some links here for the nav. All right, we got some paragraph elements, photos, H1s, H2s. Okay, so things to kind of pay attention to here in the HTML, we have this div for our container, which kind of wraps everything into it. Okay, so it's ID container. We have a link kind of at the top to skip to content. All right, so the content, so we're using a span element there. All right. Okay, and then we have these different classes down here that we have added to these paragraph elements, okay, called news, right? And so here's that content, right, for the main section. So this is just one of those fragment links, okay, up there, the skip to content. Okay, so all the HTML is ready to go. We got that all set up. One other thing to pay attention to is we have this image right here, Trillium, that's floating right, okay? So let's go ahead and now we're gonna set up our CSS. Okay, so we're gonna set up an embedded style sheet in the head. All right. So we got an opening and closing tag for our style. All right. So first thing, we're going to add in that HTML5 element support for older browsers. Okay, so we need to do header. These are all of our different sections. Nav, comma, main, comma, footer, and aside. Curly brackets. We want this to always display block. Okay. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Next, we need to do our box sizing, border box for all the elements. Okay, so for universal, we use the asterisk there, curly brackets, and then box sizing. Oops. Go back there, box sizing, and border box. All right. Okay, now we're going to do the body element selector. Okay, so let's do our body. Add another space there. Okay, body. And we're going to have a margin of 0. Okay, margin 0 on all 4 sides. And then we're going to do background color. Set that to white. Okay, let's do ID selector that we have for that container. All right, so we're going to set up background color for that. We'll do our text color. And we want to set up a minimum width of 960 pixels. And set our fonts. Okay, so font family, we'll use Verdana and Arial. And sans serif. Okay, that should be good for our container. All right, let's work on our header now. All right, so we have quite a bit of stuff here. We got background color, background image, working with our background position, repeat, height of our header, text color, text align, padding, all that. So I'm gonna go ahead and, so we're on page 316, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and just get all this put in as fast as I can. All right, background color. Image, we're using that one there. And okay, so background position. We want it to be at the bottom. And the last one here for the background, repeat. We're going to go ahead and repeat that on the x-axis. Okay. And then we're going to set a height for this header of 120 pixels. Our text color. And text align, we're going to text align that to the right. And we're going to put some padding in for our header. 0 top and bottom, 20 on the right and left. And then the last one, border, bottom. Okay, we're going to add a border here to the bottom. 2 pixels, solid, and let's give it a color, black. All right, so that's our header. Okay, a couple more here. We got nav, all right, so let's set up our nav. We're going to float it to the left. And we're going to give it a width of 150 pixels. And then let's set up the sidebar on the right. So a side, float right. And we're going to give that a width of 200 pixels. All right. Now our main section. Okay, so our main element, set up some margins here. 0, 210, 0, and 160. And padding, 1 pixel, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, and 10 pixels. And then we'll add a background color and text color. Okay, for the background color, let's do white, and then for our text color, it's kind of greenish color. All right, that's good for the main. Okay, the next one is footer. Hopefully I'll get this done before class is over. It's a lot in here. Font size, 0.70 M, okay. Text align, let's set that to center. Text color. Oops. Go. Background color. Save some typing, copy that, paste that. All right, and then padding on the top. 10 pixels. All right, and we want this, since the footer, we want to clear both of those floats, right? So we do clear both. All right, so let's save this. Okay, so if we look back, okay, we're getting closer. Okay, we're starting to get some stuff looking a little better. All right, so, oh my gosh, we got a lot of stuff here. On page 318, let's code the H1. All right, so H1, margin top 0. And let's do a font size, 3M. Text align center. And we're also going to put a text shadow. Pixels, 2 pixels, and black. All right, so I've got our H1. Okay, so now we're going to do our header, anchor, okay, we're going to set a font size for this. Of 0.80 M. Okay, and let's add some pseudo classes here. So header, anchor, link, comma, header, anchor, visited. Okay, so this is new. Before we did these all separately, if we're doing the same styles to multiple pseudo classes, we can just add a comma, space, and then type the next one. Okay, because I want both of these to look the same with the same text color. Oops, got my. Okay, they're both white. Okay, and then again, this anchor, the pseudo class for focus and hover. Those are going to be the same as well, with this different color. But it's that same color for both of those. All right. Let's do one for our Nav Unordered List. Okay, margin, top, 20 pixels. And list style, we want to get rid of the bullets, okay? So we got to do that list style type of none. All right, next one, okay, for our nav, Let's do these real quick. Nav A, text decoration, none. And let's set our font size. Whoops, wrong one. Font size 1.2M. Okay, let's do some pseudo classes here. So a link. Let's get a color. And for visited, and again, focus, comma, and hover, we're gonna have same color. Okay. And a new one here as well, we got Nav Anchor active. And we can set the color for that to black. Okay, we want to also style that image in the nav to give it a margin of 30 pixels around it. Okay. Our main paragraph element, I'm going to give it a margin of 20 pixels. And then in our main section, we're also going to style our H2 and our main H3 with a different text color. And a background color. White. Okay, float, our float right. We can style that float right class selector. All right, so we're going to do a margin of 10 pixels and also add in float, set that to the right side. Okay, we're almost done. We have a side, so our sidebar H3, padding for the bottom, 2 pixels. And then we want a border on the bottom, 1 pixel, solid, black. All right, margin, 10 pixel all the way around. Font size, 0.9M. And text color. All right, last one. We have another class selector called news. All right, again, we're going to change the font size on that one to 0.8M and a margin of 10 pixels. Oh, okay. That's a lot of CSS, okay? Hopefully I didn't make any typos. So let's look, right? So this is before we've added anything to it. So let's save it and see what it looks like now. All right, looks a lot better. We got this guy up here, this skip to content. So that would, again, if we had a lot of more text in here and photos, it would take us down to this section. We got our rollovers, okay, for our nav. We got our sidebar here, okay. So a lot of work there with CSS. One thing, so on Friday, I'm probably not going to cover all of these practice activities because I want to get to the responsive design stuff with you guys, okay? So take a look at 6.7 on your own. Okay, that's just setting up we talked about external style sheet for printing, right? Where we strip out some of the unnecessary stuff for to be able to print that page, okay? So take a look at 7.6. Also, let's see, I think that might be the only one. Yeah, 7.7, we'll get into the responsive stuff. So between now and Friday, just take a look at 7.6, and then on Friday we'll do the responsive web coding, okay, as well as we'll make sure we get into flex boxes and grids, okay. Because really, what I want you guys to be able to do is use those flex boxes and the grid system instead of all of these like float right and float left type of stuff for the nav. Okay, so those are really important. So we'll cover those on Friday for sure. All right. Okay, that's it. Have a good rest of your day. Good. If you have any questions on any of the stuff that I went through today, just shoot me an email and let me know, and we'll get this stuff finished up then on Friday. Okay, so we'll talk to you guys later, and have a good day.